everybody. I'm joined today by Andreas, who is the head of Regulatory International within the pharmaceutical biotech industry here in Switzerland. And he's very kindly agreed to join us today and explain a little bit more about what his role is like in the regulatory industry, and hopefully give some insight to those looking to either advance their career in this space or to enter it for the first time. Thank you for joining us, Andreas.
It's a pleasure.
All right, so we'll jump right in. I think the easiest thing to start with would be kind of what's the day in the life of a regulatory professional, or what's your task, basically?
Yeah, my task is, generally speaking, very high level. We're in the regulatory world, where the interface between what's happening within the company, be it a big pharma, biotech, or development-orientated organization, and then the regulatory government bodies that oversee the development of pharmaceuticals. So we prepare what is produced by our company to submit it to the regulators, because everything we do in this industry is subject to rules and regulations, and you have to respect things like you have to be very meticulous and document and show and be approved for what you do when you're manufacturing your pharmaceuticals, how you put them into animal testing, how you put them into clinical testing, how you manage the data that come out of clinical testing, and how you prepare them and how you translate those into information for physicians and for patients that they can use. And while people in the companies typically have pretty broken down roles, our job in regulatory is just to pull that together and assemble this in the way that the agencies would want to see it, and that reflects the way that the company wants to present our information, and then provide that to the regulators. But there's also the reverse path that we need to think of. When we submit something to the regulatory authorities, such as the European Medicines Agency in Amsterdam, or when you're in Switzerland, Swissmedic, the US FDA, what we get back in terms of responses, in terms of requests, sometimes is not fully understandable to a layperson or even like somebody else into the company. So we need to translate that, so to speak, to the stakeholders within the company, so they can provide the best possible answer, the best possible response to the requests and to the needs of the regulators. And that way we're in a crucial interface on for getting the permission from regulatory authorities to bring pharmaceuticals to patients onto the market.
What would you say the biggest challenge that you face is in your job?
The biggest challenge is really, like I said, it's like we're on a nexus of like where lots of things come together and go out. We really generally need to have a really wide understanding and need to be able to deal with, like, really think across disciplines while keeping a regulatory hat on. And that can be very complex, and very frequently there are no straight answers, and you just need to choose among options or advise people on what are the best options going forward. And the options that you have are very rarely those that you would want to have. So like dealing within the constraints that either the science, the data, the financial means of the company, politics in the company, to be honest, and then on the other hand, the laws, regulations, habits of regulators, putting that together, that sometimes can be very stressful to deal with. But also like finding those solutions that work, that's really the thing that's gratifying too.
Good. Yeah, thank you. The politics, always a big part of it. When you're hiring or just as advice to people, I mean, what kind of education do you think lends itself best to a job in regulatory?
Mm-hmm. Well, I do live in France, and in France, only pharmacists training people did regulatory for a long time, until some people realized that actually pharmacy is good, but really a broad life science education is better. Okay. Because you need to understand, beyond pure pharmaceutical knowledge, which you need to have, you need to understand how pharmacokinetics works, how a drug is distributed in the body. But if you have a scientific training, you can read up on that. You get you get a textbook, even a short textbook. You can train very quickly to a level where you can start understanding what's going on, and then you can talk to people in the company and learn more. So having that scientific mindset, reading up, understanding concepts is super important. And I think some people with biology, pharmacy, sometimes like more specialized engineering, like biotech, even chemistry backgrounds are very, very well suited for this kind of work. It's very important that on top of a scientific mind, you also need to be structured and have a certain affinity to just putting together information, organizing information, sometimes within like very tightly regulated frameworks. We have to put like a good good indicator is how good are you in filling in bureaucratic forms. Like how often does somebody come back to you and tell you filled this in wrong?
Yeah, that segues well into actually the next question that I had is, maybe advice to somebody who's considering starting in regulatory. And I think you just pointed out something really well. What you talk about is more like a personality trait right there, as opposed to something I can go and learn. I mean, I was just trying to book a flight. I made so many mistakes. So it's probably not, the right place for me to go as regulatory. But what advice would you give to somebody, and what kind of traits besides that kind of very diligent personality do you think is necessary to succeed?
Diplomacy is very important.
Okay.
Because and this is one thing that I personally had to learn, because I come from a science background and I moved into regulatory through a trainee program, and being German, relatively direct, and coming into a multicultural environment, you need to be able to convey the needs, which are sometimes your needs, sometimes the regulatory agency's needs, in a way that people within the company can follow and be with you and understand your needs. And you need to lead without authority, because most of the time, those people report to other bosses. So you're not their boss, but you still need to be able to take people with you. So sometimes just being factual, which is like a scientist's perspective, right? If I get all the facts right, people will follow me. That's not it, right? So what if you have like an additional talent to communicate well, to work together with people, and build bridges and make understanding, that's very good. I would say is like you still need to be on the fact-oriented, meticulous side. But if you need to build your other social, you need to work with your other social skills within the company to be able to achieve the results that you want.
What would you say is the most frustrating part of your job?
The most frustrating part is when you're working within a European organization that has a headquarters in the US, that you have to constantly fight against, and even among yourself, but also with your colleagues, you have to fight against an us and them attitude. It is true that American companies care about America first, second, third, and then sometime down there is the rest of the world. And unless there's a very strong push from and attention from the top of the company that says the rest of the world exists and you need to take care of it, you always need to shout to make yourself heard. but you can't blame people for it. They live in their world, and you're looking at their world from the outside.
Well, to give you a counterpoint on that, and we'll end on a lighter note or more positive, let's say, what is the best part of your job?
The best part is knowing that you make a difference in patients' lives. Yeah. And of course, that's consummate to like what kind of medicine is it that you're working for. But one thing that you will realize is as soon as you start digging into anything the pharmaceutical industry is working on, 90% of the time, there's a true patient need behind it. And if you help bringing a drug to not only to the market, but keeping it on the market and keeping it available and making sure that it's available for patients after it's been first approved for years and years. Also, just on the other end, finding out whether a drug works and how it works and for whom it works best. You can see this as a global one. Like this is really the reward that you have, that you see you making a true difference. And of course, like the really great moments is like, yeah, you get that stamp from the regulatory authorities, you get that email, you get that notification. It's like, yes, what I put in sometimes months ago, sometimes a year ago, is now approved, and we can go ahead and go on to the next step and bring it just one step further, closer to patients, or keep it available for patients.
Great. Yeah, I mean, look, well, that's what it's all about, is really keeping people healthy, keeping people alive, keeping people happy. And I thank you for your work you're doing in that space, and thank you for the time that you took to speak to me today. And I wish you all the best moving forward in getting the next product on the market for the patients who need it.
Thanks very much, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you.